Welcome back, Wisdom Walkers. And for you newbies out there, hi. Thanks for visiting my channel, Life Lessons Learned. For those of you who haven't seen my previous video entitled Friggin' Susie Sunshine, you may want to watch that one because what I'm about to share with you was during the time that I worked at this same organization. So you guys may be thinking, what the hell? But in this particular instance, it was the executive director that directed his vitriol, shall I say, towards me. And again, as you guys know, I'm a negotiator, I'm trained in peace negotiations. I always seek to have peace first. But as he said in X Men, sometimes peace is not an option. Okay. Not on my doing, but if they want to go there, we'll be there. Okay. So I'm going to share with you what happened with me when this uh, executive director tried to bully me into doing something I simply was not going to do, whether he wanted me to or anyone else. So let's get into this one. If you'll recall, that particular job was when I worked as a neighborhood liaison for people that were moving into our areas, getting them acclimated to the neighborhood, the school system, the events that would occur, and getting them to meet other neighbors. So I was marketing houses. I was not a licensed realtor, but I was the one that they used to show prospective buyers the homes, go over the details with them, let them know what was expected of them to move into that area. Because we were actually looking for people that would be joining the neighborhood watch, helping to put on events for the children, volunteering to paint houses for the elderly, all of these things. Now, that wasn't a prerequisite for them to get into the home. We just wanted them to know what some of the expectations were for the new homeowners that we were getting into this community. And the whole idea, I came up with this phrase that said putting the neighbor back into neighborhood so that people would be encouraged to get to know their neighbors and get to know their neighbors' kids. And, we kind of all would look out for each other. Well, at this particular time, I was actually, and the way that the program worked, it was rent to own. So you would rent the home for anywhere from 3 months to a year, and you would have time to decide if you wanted to purchase the home. And if you decided to do so, then they would have options for you to be able to do that. So that's how all of this worked. So I was an employee of the organization, but I was also in one of the homes that I had my eye on to become a homeowner for. It was a beautiful home for me and my three girls. Now, as I got to the point where I was making the offer on the home, um, we were all in a meeting. So normally, I know this sounds kind of convoluted, but because I was an employee there, um, the normal way to have done this would have been between the executive director and myself, and not in a meeting with all the rest of the employees there. But oh well. So we were finishing up our meeting, which we had for all of the employees, and we were all still seated at the table. And the executive director looked at me and he said, we're still waiting for you to give your offer for your home. And I was like, oh, okay, I have the offer here. And I said, and I would love to be able to, just hand it in to you and we can go over it. He said, well, you don't need to wait or anything. You can give it to me now. So, and I had it in an envelope, you have your little offer letter and that kind of thing. And my thing was to offer to pay what the house was selling for. Okay, so that makes sense to me. I mean, some people offer less and then they start to negotiate and do all that. And if you saw my one of my very first videos about I'll never cheat a merchant again, my thing was I'm not going to haggle with someone if that's their offer, if that's their asking price. If I want to purchase it, then I'll pay that price. I'm not going to haggle with you and try to whittle you down or do any of that stuff. Plus, again, remember I was an employee of this organization, so I thought the offer was a fair one. It's a beautiful home, It's within my income level and I'm already there. So, everything should have, in my mind, gone smoothly. So, anyway, I slid it over to him and he opens it up. And remember, this is the same job where the lady that called me a friggin' Susie Sunshine, she's actually sitting in on this meeting as well. So it's about 4 or 5 other employees here, which is I didn't care. Well, the executive director opened up the envelope and he looked. And again, remember, I'm offering what they're asking. So hello. And he just turned red in the face and he picked up the paper that I had just slid over to him and he threw it at me. And I wasn't sitting next to him, so it was the executive director, another employee, and then myself. And that paper just slowly floated past her nose, almost hit her face, and landed down in front of me. And he said, "That offer is a joke. I know you don't plan on offering that." And I'm like, did he see the numbers right? What? Maybe I transposed them or something. So I look at the paper because I'm like, what the hell? No, it was no joke. Mm, I'm offering what you guys are asking. So I said, and I really was confused, you guys. I'm like, okay, Twilight Zone. I'm always in the Twilight Zone in my life. Why? Why doesn't God love me? So I was like, no, that's my offer. He said, well, your offer is rejected. And so I said, okay. And the reason I said okay was on this particular planet, there's more than one house. Okay. So if I don't get this one, then guess what? I'll be looking somewhere else. But that's that. This is the only house in the city. So that was that. And then he gets up and he storms out of the meeting. And then the lady sitting next to me said, what the heck just happened? What did you offer? Did you go $10,000 less? And I said, no, I'm offering what they're asking. She said, let me see. And, normally you already know in my work, I'm professional. You don't need to count my money, and I'm not trying to count yours. But this whole thing was such an outlandish display of emotion that I said, sure. And I showed it to her, and she was like, what is he talking about? I said, girl, only he knows. I'm like, I ain't got time to be worried about these knuckleheads. So the meeting was over with, everything was done. And then towards the end of the day, I didn't have to like really interact with him or anything. He's in his office, I'm in mine, we're doing what we do. So I'm thinking, maybe he'll think about it and be like, oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have acted in that way. But remember how I talked about in my previous video with the sisters that got reunited? Sometimes pride gets in the way, ego gets in the way. And for some reason today, people think apology is a 4-letter word, like it's a bad thing. And I'm like, no, it's never been a bad thing for me. If I have done something egregious to someone else, I am the first to apologize. But beyond that, I don't do it again. So all of these apologies and you're still having the same attitude, that doesn't fly with me, okay? But I digress. So didn't think a lot of it. And then, I went on home at the end of the day. Well, he was still there in the office, which is fine. Sometimes they stay longer. About And just to let you know, I lived around the corner from where I worked. And the reason for that was at this time in my life, I did not have transportation. So my thing was to get a job where you can walk to, and then you don't need transportation, at least not for work, because I didn't want that. So I walked on home, and about 15 minutes after I got home, this guy called my home. So I'm like, hello? He was like, yeah, I just needed to speak to you. I'm like, okay. And remember my nerdy ass, I'm thinking apology is going to be coming. That was not the case. He said, that offer that you gave us is just not acceptable. And I need to speak to you about that. And I said, okay, I would like to know why, though, it's not acceptable. That's the listing price. I'm not going to pay more than that. And he said, well, you should. And I'm thinking, The hell am I hearing here? I was like, what would be the purpose for me to offer more for a house that's designed for low to moderate income families? Why would I be offering more unless you guys are having some type of a big ass raise that you're giving me that I don't know about and I make more than what I should? But again, I digress. So he said, as a representative of this community and as an employee here, just to show that we're not showing you any favoritism, I feel that you should offer more for the house than what it's worth. And so I said to him, because you know I'm a quick thinker, hello, not a dummy. I said, so would you tell your son or your daughter, which he had a son and daughter at the time, to pay more for a house than what the owners are asking for? And he, without thinking, of course not. I said, then why would you tell me to do that? You guys, complete silence. And then he says these words. And remember, these things are all true that happened in my life. He said, don't forget, young lady, you're in one of our houses and I have a key to your house. Now, most people, idiots, wouldn't know that that's a threat. But me knew that's exactly what that was. And you guys, I got livid. And I said to myself, because I'm thinking, first of all, did he just, first of all, he's an executive director. He's threatened an employee saying he has a key to my house. But then the Detroit side of me came out. And see, when that Detroit side comes out, all of that negotiation, peer mediation, conflict resolution, that goes out the window, okay? Because now Detroit sisters in. I even shouldn't have said it like that. But I said to him, hold on, because, you know, back in the day, your phones were landlines, but I had a long cord. So I took my phone over to the door and I put the receiver in next to the door and I unlocked it, unlocked both my locks so you can hear the locks click, 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 click. And I said, my door is now unlocked, so you don't have to use a key. I said, but before you get here, just remember one thing. I'm from Detroit, okay? I know how to protect me and my family. And you guys, he said, what are you talking about? I was just joking with you. I was just talking. And then he slammed the phone down. And I'm thinking to myself, that mofo better have. What the hell? So, of course, I had to go to work the next day. So did he. So, and you know me, Princess Prompt. I'm not going to say that in every video, but I Princess Prompt. I get places earlier than what I need to be because that's what I do. So I get there before he does, and I'm in my office minding my business, and here he comes tapping on the door. Tap, tap, tap. I was like, come on in. And he was like, yesterday was really emotional for me, and there were some things that I was going through, and I cannot believe that I did acted that way in that meeting. So I wanted to apologize. And I said, apology accepted. I mean, because we all can have down days. I get it. Don't think I'm making excuses for an executive director that threatens his employees by saying he has a key to their house. I'm not, definitely not overlooking that because I'm thinking to myself, I wish he would have come. Because we wouldn't be having this conversation right now, but okay. So then he said, your offer was a reasonable one, and I should have taken it at that. He said, but so just to let you know, I I really am sorry about everything, and that was not indicative of the behavior that I wanted to exhibit. And I'm thinking it was indicative of you, though, right? Because this guy was always, flying off the handles. He thought women shouldn't be in the workforce and da 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 da. But those are his issues, not mine. So I was okay with what had well, I can't say I was okay with what had transpired, but he apologized, and that's the thing to do. And so I was ready to move on from there. But I can tell you guys what I didn't do. I did not purchase that home. So I had made up my mind that evening before, when all of that had gone down, that I would just purchase a different home that's not connected to my job, not connected to what coworkers know or any of that. And I would just, take control of my own life, make my own decisions, and pay what the heck agreed to pay with someone. So that's what I did. I wound up purchasing. That's the beautiful home that I had. Um, if you saw my video about the sisters being reunited, that was the home that was on that one block. So it was just one street. That street was just one block long. Beautiful home, 2 stories, wood floors, fireplace, breakfast nook, 3 bedrooms upstairs, 2 bathrooms in the home. I mean, it was just beautiful, and everything really worked out so much better for me because then I no longer had my employment connected to my housing situation. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes people, leasing agents or leasing managers at apartment complexes are there for a discounted price. But once that job is over, sometimes you have to find other place to live. And I just did not I wanted everything to be separate for me with that. So that's the story on that. My lesson for all of you guys is it doesn't matter if it's an executive director, a managing partner, a doggone owner. You do not need you do not have to allow someone to speak to you anyway, talk to you anyway, and damn sure not bully you to serve their purposes. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. Remember, knowledge is in the knowing, but wisdom is in the doing. And the true learning of a lesson is the application of it. So, this is Sherry Brantley. This is Life Lessons Learned. What knowledge, what lesson will you apply in your life moving forward? For my wisdom walkers, thank you as always for visiting my channel. If you're new here and you're so inclined, please subscribe and come back to visit. I'd love to see you. And for everyone, please leave your comments below. In this situation, what would you have done? Or would you have done anything differently? Thanks. I'll see you guys on the next round.